Please, just hear me out once. Don't turn away yet. Don't let the silence of yesterday decide what you are willing to hear today, because there is something moving beneath the surface of your life, something connected to a heart that has been carrying words for far too long, and if you walk away now, you may never understand why certain memories have suddenly returned to you with such strange intensity. You have felt it, haven't you? That quiet feeling that something remains unfinished. You may not know what it is, you may not know who it involves, you may not even know why your heart suddenly becomes heavy at certain moments, but somewhere deep inside you, there is a question that refuses to disappear. And perhaps that question has been waiting for this exact moment to finally be answered. What if the person you thought had forgotten you never truly forgot? What if the silence was not the end? What if the distance was hiding a story you were never told? And what if the words you have secretly wished to hear are already forming inside someone's heart, waiting for enough courage to become real? Just hear me out once. That is all this heart is asking from you, not forever, not a promise. Not an immediate return, just one moment, one honest moment without pride, one conversation without fear, one chance to say everything that remained trapped behind a silence that became much longer than anyone expected. Because you need to understand something before you judge what happened. People do not always walk away because they stop caring. Sometimes people walk away because they care so much that they become afraid of what they feel. Sometimes they disappear because they do not know how to explain their confusion. Sometimes they become distant because they are carrying shame. Sometimes they remain silent because they believe that speaking now would only make everything worse. And sometimes the person who looks like they moved on is the very person who still remembers the smallest details about you. They remember the way you spoke. They remember the way you looked at them when you thought they were not paying attention. They remember the little things you said without realizing they would remain in someone's heart. They remember the moment you became quiet. They remember the moment you walked away. They remember what they wanted to say but never said. And there is one memory in particular that they have returned to again and again, because that memory contains the beginning of everything they have been afraid to tell you. You may have thought that moment meant nothing, maybe it lasted only a few seconds, maybe you exchanged a glance, maybe there was a brief conversation, maybe you were both standing in the same place, surrounded by other people, pretending everything was normal, but something changed that day. You felt it, they felt it. Neither of you understood it completely, and instead of talking about it, you both continued as though nothing had happened. That was the beginning of the silence, not because the feeling disappeared, because neither of you knew what to do with it. You have spent time trying to make peace with that unanswered story. You told yourself that maybe you imagined the connection, maybe you misunderstood the signs. Maybe the person never felt anything, maybe you cared more, maybe you were simply holding on to a memory because you had not found the right way to let it go. You tried to convince yourself of all of these things because uncertainty can be exhausting. It is easier to say, it meant nothing, than to live with the possibility that it meant everything and still somehow ended in silence. But your heart has never completely accepted that explanation. That is why certain things still affect you, a familiar song, a certain place, a name, a date, a photograph, a message you never deleted, a sentence you still remember word for word. A dream that arrives unexpectedly and leaves you wondering why someone you thought you had released suddenly appeared again. You may call these coincidences, maybe some are, but sometimes a memory returns because there is something inside you that has not finished healing from it, and sometimes healing does not begin with forgetting. Sometimes healing begins with understanding. You have changed since those days. You are not the same person who once waited anxiously for an answer. You are not the same person who believed another person's silence determined your worth. You are not the same person who would have accepted almost anything simply because you wanted to keep someone close. You have learned. You have cried. You have waited. You have lost. You have survived. And through all of it, something inside you became stronger without becoming hard. That matters now, because if the truth comes to you, you will be able to hear it without losing yourself inside it. You will be able to listen without immediately surrendering your boundaries. You will be able to understand someone's pain without taking responsibility for everything they did. You will be able to love without abandoning yourself. And somewhere, the person connected to this story is changing too, maybe slowly, maybe painfully, maybe in ways you cannot see. They may have realized that silence did not make the feeling disappear. They may have tried to distract themselves. They may have convinced themselves that moving forward was the right thing. They may have met new people. They may have laughed. They may have continued their life. But then something unexpected happened. They discovered that moving forward and moving on were not always the same thing. They could move forward with their life while still carrying one unanswered question in their heart, and that question had your name on it. They have wondered what would happen if they reached out. Would you respond? Would you be angry? Would you ignore them? Would you tell them that it was too late? Would you still remember? Would you even care anymore? These questions have stopped them more than once. There may have been nights when they opened their phone and searched for your name. There may have been moments when they typed a message and erased it. There may have been times when they almost called and then convinced themselves that they had no right, and perhaps you have done something similar. Perhaps you have typed words you never sent. Perhaps you have imagined what you would say if the opportunity ever came. Perhaps you have rehearsed the conversation in your mind so many times that you almost know their imagined response. But imagination cannot give you what truth can, and truth is what your heart has been asking for, not fantasy, not assumptions, not signs that can be interpreted 10 different ways. Truth. You deserve truth, even if it is painful, even if it changes everything, even if it tells you that something you hoped for was never possible, because there is a strange freedom that comes when you finally know, and maybe that is why this message is finding you now. Not to make you chase someone, not to tell you that every person from your past is destined to return, not to make you wait beside a phone, but to remind you that unfinished emotions do not have to control your future. You can hear someone out without giving them control. You can forgive without returning. You can understand without forgetting. You can love someone and still choose yourself. And perhaps that is the lesson you were meant to learn before this conversation could ever happen. Because if the person returns as the same person who left, nothing truly changes, the story only repeats. But if someone returns with honesty, humility, accountability, and genuine transformation, then perhaps the conversation becomes something different, not a return to the past, a meeting between two people who have both changed. That possibility has been growing quietly, and perhaps someone has recently begun asking questions about you. Maybe they have wondered how you are doing. Maybe they have asked someone whether you are happy. Maybe they have heard something about your life and realized that they know much less about you than they thought. Maybe they saw something that reminded them of you, and that small reminder opened a door they had kept locked. Suddenly, memories came rushing back. They remembered the good, then they remembered the painful, they remembered what they said. They remembered what you said, and most painfully, they remembered what neither of you said. That is often where regret begins, not with what happened, with what should have happened but never did. They may regret not asking you one more question. They may regret believing someone else's words. They may regret allowing pride to speak louder than love. They may regret leaving when they should have stayed. They may regret staying silent when one honest sentence could have changed everything. And perhaps the deepest regret is realizing that you may have spent years believing something about them that was never true. There may have been a misunderstanding, a piece of information that never reached you, a conversation you never knew happened, a decision made without your knowledge. Someone may have said something. Someone may have influenced the situation. Someone may have believed they were protecting you, and somehow, a story formed around you that was incomplete. You lived according to that incomplete story. They lived according to another incomplete story, and both of you suffered because neither person knew the whole truth. That is why the coming conversation matters, not because it guarantees a reunion, because it may finally complete the story.